Good afternoon. That's the response part of the program. Good afternoon. You know, getting the after lunch spot, I got to get the energy going, so I'm really excited to spend half an hour with you, share some results. I also brought up some copies of my book, so if if the dessert kicks in, I'll start throwing these out into the audience, so get ready to pick them up. Sales culture and accountability. Alice stole my question a little bit there, but think about and rate the sales culture in your organization. And where are you and where do you need to get to? And my belief and our belief at Fusion Learning is, this is the holy grail. This is where we can keep going, right? Even when we get to a really good sales culture, it's amazing to see how much higher we can go. So we're going to spend some time on that. These are some of our clients up on the slide here. If you don't see your logo, just visit our booth outside. Okay, keep going, Kevin, keep going. I want to talk about sales culture planning. I want to talk about vital conversations. I think this is a big deal that we're missing in sales organizations. Vital conversations, not with the high performers, not with the low performers, but with the middle of the pack, which we all have lots of. And the last thing is to talk about recruiting and onboarding, two pieces that I have a lot of passion around that I think, if we don't do those right, guess what? Sales culture doesn't happen, right? Sales culture doesn't happen, and there's some neat findings. Throughout, I'm going to share some research that we did. We do this every few years. We go out and we ask sales leaders to tell us about their sales organizations, their sales strategy, their sales management, their sales capabilities, their recruiting, their onboarding, their compensation. So I'll share highlights throughout. You'll see in the presentation BEST. So what we do is we go out, we survey a couple of hundred organizations. At the end of the survey, we say, by the way, what were your results last year? Results as a percentage of plan, and results around number of salespeople who made plan. And we define BEST as organizations not at 100% of plan, at 110, but not where they got there on the back of one person, but where they had 70% or more of their people at or above plan. So we're looking for the sales organizations that do it across the organization, not because they had a product launch that was amazing or they have a couple of people who really knock it out of the park. So when you see, whenever I talk about the research, when I'm saying BEST, we're referring to this subset. And it's 5% of the organizations that respond to our survey. All right? Good. So, sales organization has a culture of accountability and results. Average 6.7, best 8.2. We really saw some differences. And one of the big differences is this idea around coaching and management. And we've known this for years, but it's really being highlighted. You'll see one slide later that talks about frequency of coaching. And it's amazing how the best organizations are really on this. One of the things I think about is look at your sales managers. What percent of the time are they doing sales management versus what percent of the time are they doing administration? Right? It's unbelievable. I mean, we do work with all kinds of different organizations across all kinds of industries. It's amazing, like 70% administration time, 30% sales management, right? Their title is sales manager, but we're getting them so distracted. They're on this strategic project, they're expected to do this, they're also helping with this. Their day job gets left behind. So something for you to think about. Manage sales representatives against very specific activity. Activity measures, right? Especially in today. We've invested a fortune in CRM. Are we taking advantage of that? Are we looking at that and seeing where are people spending time and how are they doing it? The best organizations are. There are still, right, I'm sure no one in this room, there are still these sales organizations that are paying attention to results, right? Results is like driving your car by looking in the rearview mirror, right? That's it. Looking at this, activity equals results, Activity goes up, results goes up. Activity goes down, results go down. What do you think? The right activity, exactly. Quality and quantity. I saw, the formula earlier. This is the picture of the formula you might have seen earlier. I can't say who it was because they're one of our competitors, but right? Quantity and quality of activity leads to results. Thoughts now? Yeah, getting there, right? In between though, pipeline. Quality and quantity of activity leads to pipeline, leads to results. Anything else missing, right? People always say to me, Kevin, there's a big white spot, right? Focus. And when we really get down to sales management, this is it, right? Focus on the right accounts, have the right quality and quantity of activity that leads to pipeline that gets us to results. This will lead to high-performing sales culture, but when we ask, right, we currently have a high-performing sales culture, 200 organizations, the average response was 6 out of 10. I was actually pleased when Alice asked, a lot of hands went up, so that's terrific. Congratulations to everybody here, because I'm hearing great sales culture, which is terrific. That's probably, right, the people who aren't in the room, we need to help with this. Let's talk about this. So how do we put it into a graphic, right? Focus and activities leads to pipeline, leads to results. There's lots that goes around this circle, right? There's lots. We've tried to simplify it. What are the 3 or 4 things that go around this that really lead to sales culture, right? This is what we want, right? What we want is focus, activities, pipeline, and results. How, right? A lot of times speakers talk about what, not about how. Management disciplines. Number one thing we see in those best organizations is they're doing one-on-ones, they're doing pipeline reviews, they're in the field doing field coaching. They've got management disciplines. Those disciplines have high frequency. Rewards and recognition. You saw it earlier, I think it was in Gerhard's, 6 to 1 in terms of positive to opportunities to improve. The best sales organizations have built-in reward and recognition. This is not a, by the way, you should with your sales teams do some reward and recognition. This is a build it into the system. At Fusion, we have a simple way we do this, and it's kind of old school in a way, but it really works. We have a gong. And when one of our salespeople, I saw 3 actually videos today of gongs that have been run in our Toronto office and in our New York office. And we just have a gong. The salesperson hits it. People in the office gather together. We share who's the client, why'd they select us, what is it that we're going to do for them. We get excited about that. And the salesperson chooses a member of the team that's helped them with that. They get to spin a little prize wheel. They get a $5 Starbucks certificate or a $10 lunch. Very simple reward and recognition. And we videotape that. It goes out to the whole company, right? And it's very simple, but it's built in, and it happens frequently. So we build it into the system versus hope that reward and recognition occurs. People development. Sales, and I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes, but sales is about developing your people, right? Coaching is about developing your people. High-performing sales, go pick, right? Go think about, you say, oh, we've got a great sales organization in this part of our company. You are going to see that they are constantly developing. They're not sitting on that, they're creating that. And last, systems, tools, CRM. I think we've done an amazing job. I look at what our systems can do. We're a small company. I look at what our systems can do now. It's amazing, right? You look at CRM and what it can generate for you. But not used, it's just a lot of data that we're collecting and forcing people to put in, right? And you can see the circle here. So in the middle, right, the what, the outer circle is the how, and all of these connect together. My CRM is used in my monthly one-on-one or my weekly pipeline review, and in that, I'm also doing reward and recognition, and I'm trying to coach and develop the person. So in a picture, a simple way for you to think about, just on this picture, put check marks where you're doing well, okay is where you could improve, and X is where you've really got to make a change. Simple way to look at and understand what could we do to change our sales culture. This, I won't go on a lot, but what we try to do is then help sales leaders to put this on one page. So this is a sales leader's plan for a year on one page that shows across the middle the bullseye targets for focus, activity, pipeline, and results, and on the bottom the 4 outer parts of the circle that are going to lead you to hit those targets that you have. These will all be available afterwards, so don't worry about copying down. This is a really interesting piece. Average versus best on frequency on one-on-one sales meetings and observational coaching. And what you see very clearly is that the best sales organizations see sales management as a weekly business, right? They see it as a weekly business. And it's not even that, right? They see it as an hourly, daily, and weekly business. The average organizations, they're seeing it, you know, I can give them space. These are great people. I agree, they're great people, and great people need management. I have a terrific leadership team at Fusion, and by the way, I need to manage them. I need to coach them. I need to develop them, right? Just because they've got 110% of plan as a salesperson, still need coaching, still need development. Strong culture of coaching, development, continuous improvement. Still a little less of a gap, but this is critical. The best organizations are doing that. Are managers held accountable? Here's one for you to think about. How accountable are our leaders to making sure that they're coaching and developing? Best organizations, again, better than average. Let's move to that. Second thing I wanted to talk about, just managing different people differently. We did some research on this, and what we often hear is millennials, right? You think about managing different people differently. You think about the sales force that you have, and you think about millennials. I think we're overemphasizing that. And by the way, I'm a huge proponent of millennials. I think they're incredible workforce, and I think we're undervaluing that workforce. But by the way, generations is only one piece. If we look at the kaleidoscope of what makes different people different, it's way beyond generations, right? It's way beyond generations. And so I think this focus on millennials sometimes gets us thinking about managing across one dimension of our workforce. And even within that workforce, we're managing them under one umbrella. Oh, they're a millennial, right? So when we look at trying to help organizations around managing different people differently, it's about this kaleidoscope and how do you look through it and how do you really help? We look at this as head, and this ties, this is a neat tie into a lot of the different presentations today about mindset that Gerhard was talking about understanding people and where they want to go, right? Really understanding and managing people, it's about head, it's about heart, it's about hands, and it's about feet. What motivates them, right? What really motivates them? And how do we get that understanding? Coaching, I mentioned this a bit earlier, but we need to be coaching. We're always coaching. Where people aren't succeeding, they get into performance management. There's been a lot said on that. I think the missing piece is around having vital conversations. Vital conversations are with people who are performing. This is not about poor performance. Poor performance is performance management. But what about the salesperson who's not using CRM correctly? What about the salesperson who is generating 120% of plan, but is leaving a trail of wrath behind them that is causing huge consternation in the organization, right? How do we deal with that? And what we talk about is vital conversations, and the definition is pretty simple. When you feel like you're a broken record, it's time for a vital conversation, right? The broken record might be over weeks, months, years. But how do we have that conversation that says, you know what, this isn't acceptable and we need to make changes? Verify the need, identify, talk track. This is what we use for vital. A couple of key things I would just say in this without going real deep. Verifying the need. I think we get mixed up on this. Sometimes we're just a little upset about something, and then we dive into this. If it truly is a vital conversation, we should be able to find clear, documented evidence of this happening over time. And with salespeople, sometimes I look at CRM for this, but actually the number one place I look is in emails. And you just go back in emails, and it's amazing how you can go back. I'm terrible because I have this inbox, it's just way too big, but I go back and I find 4 examples of something that's going on. And then I kind of say, this is vital conversation. And when you go to the person, it's amazing, right? You start to talk about it, they're like, huh? But then you start showing the email trail, right, of these, the conversations that you've had over time. And it's amazing how all of a sudden, right, there's a conscious moment in this vital conversation where they say, oh yeah, this is a problem. You're thinking, how could you not know? We've been talking about this for a long time. But they haven't, right? And I own that. Part of them not knowing that, I own. Let's move on. Last topic I want to spend some time on, and that's recruiting and onboarding. And it's interesting, just through the course of today, a number of different conversations. A gentleman with a simulation company and how you use simulations in hiring. I actually have some stats on that I didn't put in here. But this is interesting, right? The best are doing a great job of recruiting. They're doing a great job, and the average aren't. And this is, and we all know it, who would say that they're terrific at recruiting? Who would say, we've nailed this, we're terrific? This one it's amazing, right? This has like been around forever, right? This is not a new topic. This isn't like CRM or something. Recruiting. We've all been doing it. We all do it. And yet, somehow we're not getting that great at it. And this is critical, because if we make a mistake at that first stage, we're in trouble. I'll give the stats. They're not in the presentation, but we asked in this survey, we asked organizations, which of the following are you using in recruiting? Behavioral interviews, et cetera, reference checks. The number, or the bottom one of all the 8 different methods we asked was simulations, and only 25% of organizations are using simulations in hiring. This is the most important. For any job in our organization, someone does not get hired without going through a simulation. And lots of you are using lots of these. On the sales side, we use a prospecting simulation. And it's very simple. We give them a little piece and say, you're going to call someone, and you're on the Fusion Learning sales team now. It's not you're used to selling this. It's you're going to be selling for us. You want to sell for us. Show us how you can do it. We give it to them, we give them the piece of paper, put them in a room, say, we're going to be in the other room, call when you're ready, and your job is to set up an appointment with us. They get to read the scenario. What they don't know is going on is, as we're doing this simulation, it's not just the call. There's all kinds of things that we're testing to see how they do. So the first one is, we give it and we say, we'll be in the other room, call whenever you're ready. Some people call in 20 seconds. Some people take 15 minutes before they call. Right? Neither of those is correct or wrong, but there's a lot we can learn from that. The person who calls in 20 seconds and can't really put sentences together, they're not preparing enough, right? The person who takes 15 minutes and still isn't putting sentences, that tells us something different. So we learn by that piece. Then they make the call. We learn in the call, by the way, when they call in the other room, there's not one person sitting there, there's 3. They're getting evaluated by 3 different people, so we can really understand. When they finish the call, those 3 people, converse for a minute, and then one goes back, the hiring manager, and gives feedback. How did you do, right? We say, what do you think you did well? Here's what we saw you do well. What's one thing you do differently? Here's a suggestion from us. That conversation, we're watching to see how they take feedback, because we don't want a salesperson on our team who can't take feedback. So we watch how the feedback dialogue goes, and then they get to repeat. Let's do this again. And then that next call, it's partly about the quality of the call, but it's mostly about the coaching. Did they take that coaching and implement it in that call and make changes? Because that says to us they're good at taking coaching, right, the feedback dialogue, and they're good at implementing coaching. So I spend a little bit of time there, but this recruiting piece, I would say the #1 thing if we want to get better is simulations. Is that making, I see a lot of nods, but making some sense? We do multiple simulations for jobs, and it's amazing how much we learn. My book, there's chapters on sales management. When we're hiring a consultant to work on our team, we have them in advance read a couple of chapters. When they come in, we give them a simulation exercise where they have to take 2 of those chapters and put some of the information together. And we see how they're capable of both reading the book, understanding the book, taking some practice and putting it into play. So simulations can be used, critical on the recruiting side. We talk about rumor. You'll see a chapter in my book on this. It's about recruiting, onboarding, ongoing management gets you retention. Often with our clients, we hear they have a retention problem. It's not about retention. It's about these 3 factors ahead of that, right? #1 being the ongoing management piece. Talked about recruiting. Here's another one that we found, do candidates have one interview with 5 different people or 5 different interviews? So another piece of low-hanging fruit around recruiting, what the best are doing, right? Very different structured interviews. Each interviewer, different questions. As a person rolls through a day with you, they have 5 completely different interviews. Sometimes you see in those they have the same story that they managed to weave into 5 different interviews. That also tells you something. Last area, got a couple minutes left. Onboarding. Here's an interesting one, right? The best actually said we're not as good at onboarding. So all of us, here we don't have to say average or best, all of us are not doing enough in onboarding, right? All of us are not doing enough in onboarding. And this is a tough topic, right? This is a big topic, and this is a tough one. Where we found that some struggle is the definition. So if your definition is, they got to have keys, they got to have a passcode, they need a computer, and we're good, right? What we say is it's time till proficient enroll. Not master enroll, proficient enroll. And what is the time period? We actually asked about that in our survey, and here's what we found. And these numbers scared me. These numbers scared me. Now, it's hard to tell because, a simpler sales job, right, than maybe a simple onboarding. But we're dealing with a lot of B2B firms, and that's a lot of the population in this survey. And 80% are saying it's less than 6 months to be proficient enroll, right? I think that we're all underestimating. For us, salespeople joining Fusion Learning, onboarding plan is 15 months. And it's 15 months laid out. Some people can graduate in 12 months. Some people take 18 to 24 months, right? This one, I think we're really underestimating the time that it takes to truly onboard. How, and this you'll say is the greatest eye chart ever. I know there was that marketing one earlier with all those logos. It's probably the second worst eye chart today. But what this has, and what our view of onboarding, time till proficient enroll, we don't have onboarding binders, we don't have onboarding programs. What we have is a one-pager for every key role in our organization, and that has attitude, skills, and knowledge, and for salespeople, results. And that's what's down the side. And then across the top is 3-month chunks, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And what it basically lays out is what should your attitude, skills, knowledge, and results be in each of those periods. And behind that, what we have is you need to learn. You need to learn this. You need to be capable of doing this. Your manager will assess with you. If you need help, then you call on your manager to help you. But rather than, the big onboarding binder that by the time they finish that, by the time we finish getting that binder ready, it's obsolete. Tell them what you need them to do. Trust them to be able to figure it out. Help them when they can't. And graduate them when they have. And that's what we do. We have a graduation ceremony twice a year at Fusion. We actually give a diploma. We give a gift. We have a graduation picture taken. We make a big deal out of this. Why? Because you can imagine, you can look at this chart and think about spending 15 months trying to get check marks across this chart. By the end, you want to celebrate. And that's what we do. So onboarding, big process, leave it up to them to master, help them, and help them graduate. I think I got 3 minutes left. I promised I would keep us on time. So any quick questions before we wrap up? And questions, of course, get a copy of my book. Please.
Well, I already got a copy.
Okay, well, if...
I do have a question. You said, one thing you said that you trust them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking to salespeople and they're out there doing it, how do you keep them accountable?
Well, on the onboarding piece, right, trust them to do it. What we have is that onboarding, they have to do it, but we actually do a check mark. And by the way, when they graduate, they don't have checks all the way across. We have checks, we have OKs, and we have X's. But what we have is they've got to have a predominance in checks. So we actually check. I have someone right now, he's actually a sales leader, but he's going through the sales onboarding plan because he was hired in as a leader. And I sit down with him, and he actually does the self-assessment, and then I agree or disagree. And so I'm trusting him to own his onboarding, but I am there to support, but I'm also going to say, let's check how, how we doing here. Yeah, trust with a check. I should have said that, right? Trust with a check, yes.
I have a question about the onboarding simulation. Is that the same thing as role play? And my next question about that is, how do you make sure that they don't inform each other and there isn't sort of people who are more prepared than other people?
Yeah. Different, for us, right? We've got 35 full-time employees, and so the informing others are on the internet, right? Like my nephew just got hired by one of the big consulting companies, and he went online ahead of time because they do these simulations, and he got to read about them and prepare. So there is that going on. But at the end of the day, even if you've read about it, right, you still have to be able to execute in front of someone else. Not just role play. So I gave an example earlier. We were hiring a VP of finance, right? And so I wanted to do some sort of simulation with them. So I had 3 final candidates. I gave them copies of our financial statements from the last 3 years, gave them 20 minutes, a calculator and a pen, and said, analyze these, come up with some insights for me, and we'll have a dialogue about it afterward. And it allowed me to see them, what analysis were they able to do, what did they come up with. In that particular simulation, I had sort of 1, 2, 3 candidates, and we were talking about this earlier, it flipped it, right? The third became number 1 after that simulation. The number 1 person, actually, there was a line item that was 180% of budget. And the person spent 7 minutes going through this with me as a big deal. It was a $10,000 line item that was $18,000, so it was $8,000 over. There were all kinds of other things we could talk about. That was probably number 100 on the list, but somehow they keyed in on that. And so that simulation, maybe a tough moment, but they had a couple other things, but that really highlighted something for me that said, I don't think this is the right person. So, lots of different ways you can do those. We're done with, I got 20, oh no, I'm 20 over, shoot. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll bring you a book.